Well, since this study has come out, there's been a lot of comparisons, I guess, to the Tim Noakes diet, the Tim Noakes Banting diet. Would you say that you're against the Tim Noakes Banting diet?
Let me put it this way. I always like to start with where's the common ground? What do we have in common in terms of the recommendation? I think we agree that refined starches and added sugars and highly processed food is not, these are not good ideas.
Right.
They're harmful and should be avoided. And I think the Noakes diet also says that. Where we differ is around the obsession with drastically reducing the intake of all carbohydrates. And we differ with the Noakes approach for several reasons. We don't think it's a panacea, as I think that particular lobby seemed to indicate, that it's a sort of a panacea, it's the magic bullet for weight reduction, weight control, etc. We think that's wrong because A, we think that it will not be accessible to most people. It's an expensive diet, so it's not affordable. Two, even if it were affordable, it's not something you can sustain over a long period. It's a complicated diet, and it's not something you can recommend to the world. I think the third area is also around the environmental sustainability issue. Okay, so if you think about it, a very low carbohydrate diet implies a diet which is high in fat and protein and dependent on the intake of animal foods. Now, there are 7 billion people in the world. It's not an option for 7 billion people to be getting their main food supply from animals. It's not environmentally sustainable. Fourth reason is that it's no different from a balanced diet if you control the energy intake, as we've shown in this study. Right. And then the last reason that we have reservations about this is because of the unknown safety issues, which we've already talked about.
Right. Celeste, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think, I think that if we think about the recommendations that are being made and the practical application of those recommendations in your day-to-day diet. So, for example, I mean, there have been lots of different grams that have been advocated. So I've heard 25 to 50 grams of carbohydrates. I've heard less than 60 grams. I've heard, I think on the website it says 20 to 200 grams, and I think in the book it says something similar. So when we start looking at the 20 to 200 grams, then when we sort of move up above sort of 100 to 200 grams, it's no longer really a low carbohydrate diet.
Right.
But if we, for example, focus on the 25 grams, to practically implement that into food is a very, very, very challenging thing. And I think that for a lot of people, they don't realize that most of the whole foods that are available to us in their processed or unprocessed states actually consist of all three: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Dairy consists of carbohydrate, fats, and proteins. Nuts have all three in them. Most of the grains and cereals and starches, fruits and vegetables have all three in them. So when people are thinking that they are able to achieve only 25 grams of carbohydrates, I don't think that they may be knowingly or unknowingly actually exceeding that. Because if we think in practical food terms, an apple would provide you with between 20 and 25 grams of carbs.
Wow.
That means that's your quota then for the day. So that means no more nuts, no more vegetables, no more legumes, no more fruit. You would then be restricted to pure fat in the form of, for example, oils or meat.
When you put it like that,
so, that I think sort of drives home the point of the practical application of this recommendation. And that is specifically also why dietary recommendations around carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are not made as an absolute gram goal. Because that's different for every person, right? And the amount of the grams of carbohydrate, fats, and proteins that you take in is ultimately dependent on your total energy intake, which is why those recommendations are made in percentages, so that it's sort of, and it's a range. So what people don't understand is that a balanced diet is not about necessarily a high carbohydrate diet or a high protein or a low. It's about an acceptable, safe range. And within that, there is room for flexibility. If you would like to reduce your carbohydrates somewhat, that's fine based on your preferences. Just make sure that you're having enough variety and that your diet contains good, healthy foods. So this whole idea that's been spread that a balanced diet is always high carbohydrates is also not entirely true. The range is there specifically to allow flexibility and individualization, because that's the route that nutrition science is going in. We've moved away from those prescriptive goals of the 1970s and 80s, you know, keep your fat under this and, you know, only 55% carbs, etc. It's now a range, and people can play with that range in relation to, you know, their food preferences, etc. And that can be tailored for each individual. As soon as you start becoming overly restrictive, what we also find is that people struggle to adhere to that. You know, if you're telling people, you know, you can't eat, here's a list of foods you're not allowed to eat. Now, people are able to adhere to that for a certain amount of time, but you know, then it becomes a problem. And I think one of the biggest problems in weight loss, or challenges that we face, is helping people to keep the weight off that they've lost. So we see that there are many various diets that can work for weight loss. Some people respond to counting points, you know, when they're trying to lose weight. Some people respond to using shakes, like meal replacement shakes. Some people respond to reducing their carbohydrate intake. Some people respond to just watching their total portion control. And so they are able to actually achieve the weight loss. But then we need to be able to sustain that, because ultimately a weight loss diet that doesn't help you to sustain your weight loss, I don't think is an effective weight loss diet, you know. So I think that's one of the big challenges around that are facing us as scientists and researchers. How do we help people to actually be able to keep that weight off and maintain that weight loss?
Yeah.
So perhaps just to add on to what Celeste has said, Celeste spoke about the elimination of a number of food groups in order to be able to achieve this radical reduction in carbohydrates. You know, you can't eat so many things.
Right.
And I think the immediate issue is, you know, by doing that, you're limiting the intake of, you know, your vitamins, your minerals, you know, your fiber, your antioxidants, all these essential nutrients that we agree are essential nutrients. And, you know, one of the challenges with the low-carb diet is that, you know, you may not be able to get in enough of those essential nutrients. And that is a problem that will have to be addressed as well.
I think that's something people also overlook when you're thinking about dieting. You're thinking calories, food groups. You're not thinking vitamins, essential nutrients, the things your body needs to keep going.
I mean, I think that's a very good point. And I think that in this whole debate, we seem to be locked into this weight issue, whereas actually the reason that we eat is not just to control our body weight,
right,
but it's about being healthy and about avoiding, you know, non-communicable diseases in the long run and so forth. You know, so we have to look at all of those issues. You can't take one component and say, well, can the diet work for that, and not pay attention to the others.